There are no petitions today. For public input, we had 2 requests, but then they were withdrawn and we're probably going to come to the April meeting. That was Scott Wigglesworth on sea level rise mapping and Anna Lily van den Broek, sorry. Yes, of the importance of wetland conservation in Auckland. She's going to come to the April meeting as well. And then the one public input request who is here, we've got Sean Lee. He will be speaking on trawling and the response to the Mōtiti decision. He has a presentation and he'll come to the table. So thank you very much for coming, Sean, and thank you for all your information that committee members have received. You'll just have 5 minutes to present your presentation, and then there'll be a couple of questions from committee members after that. So thank you very much.
Kia ora, thanks for having me, and thanks for taking time to talk about the seafloor. Even though it's most of Auckland, I'm sure it's not a particularly hot topic of conversation for this committee. So you should have my report and our requests. I'm just going to quickly go over some of the main points. So since late 2019, Auckland Council's had new responsibilities to look after indigenous marine biodiversity in the marine space. So you can now use the Resource Management Act to protect against the effects of fishing, as long as you don't do so for Fisheries Act purposes. So what that means is that if you value a fishing resource for some other reason, say like a scientific, cultural, or even just an aesthetic reason, you can now do that. You can protect it. So it's pretty exciting that Auckland Council can now do marine protection without having to ask central government. But what should you look to protect first? Well, bottom impact fishing, which is bottom trawling, dredging, and Danish seining, is the thing that you should look to control first because it does the most damage to non-target species. So by letting fishers continue to scrape the seafloor, you're letting them smash up delicate ecosystems that could take 100 years or more to come back. So what am I asking you to protect? I'm asking you to protect scallop beds, mussel beds, tube worm mounds, horse mussel beds, dog cockle beds, corals, sponge gardens, bryozoans, sea pens, and brachiopods, and that's just the stuff that cleans the water. There's a whole other set of names for the stuff that photosynthesizes and stores carbon. Now, we only know how to restore one of those ecosystems, and I think it's going to cost more money for us to put it back than we made from taking it out. We still have pockets of protected corals around Auckland, and these corals are protected because they're going extinct. Central government doesn't care though and is continuing to let fishers smash them. I checked with MPI and the biggest haul they had was 200 kilograms of coral just south of Aotea, Great Barrier Island. And you can't just sort of ask fishers to avoid certain areas where this stuff is because there aren't and there will never be maps good enough. Recreational dredging is fast going out of fashion as fishers get wise to the impacts of it. Most Auckland stores have banned these things now. But you can still buy this stuff. This is big, heavy commercial bottom impact gear. This trawl door weighs 7 tons. Here's an illustration comparing the size of Auckland's biggest marine reserve with one single tow from a bottom trawl. And you can see the effects are much bigger than just what's in the direct path of the bottom trawler because it's resuspending all of these sediments. And so that plume, that cloud comes down. And if you're an animal living nearby, like a filter feeder, that sediment's going to choke you and you're going to die. And if you're a plant living nearby, then you're going to get smothered and you're going to die. So the cumulative effects of just a few of these machines are really, really massive. So the authors of Sea Change knew this, and they had a plan to get to move some of the stuff on. So by 2018, banning the use of scallop dredges in areas less than 20 metres deep, and by 2025, prohibiting the use of dredges in the entire marine park. We're not asking you to do that. We're just asking you, do bottom impact fishing methods comply with the unitary plan? And if so, please restore the ecological function of the seafloor by changing the operative unitary plan so these destructive activities require a resource consent. Now, your consents team is already applying the Mōtiti decision. The first thing they did is ban mussel reef restoration, so it's now illegal to restore the seafloor from the effects of fishing without a resource consent. However, it's absolutely fine to keep on smashing it. So Auckland's marine ecosystems are absolutely critical to our biodiversity, and you now have new legal responsibilities to protect and promote that biodiversity. So let's get started. Thanks.
Kia ora. Thank you very much, Sean. That was very to the point. Councillor Cooper, you have a question.
This is very enlightening and frightening. Your slide on what Sea Change was going to do, ban use of scallop dredges by 2018, you said they were going to do it. Did that happen?
No, Sea Change has been put on hold by central government.
2025 won't happen either, at 2025. Thank you.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sean, for your presentation. I'm just trying to process what you were saying in terms of the unitary plan. So was it raised when the unitary plan was put together and declined by council? And what are we doing about what he's raising, please, Megan? Thank you.
Well, I can answer the first bit. So the Motiti decision only really came into effect at the end of 2019. So it's a new decision. So previously it was thought that any management of the effects of fishing was up to central government. So this is a new set of responsibilities for councils.
Thanks. So, look, Sean, thank you for your presentation, but also your questions and letters that you've written to us. So we are putting a response to you around that. So yeah, just to confirm, this is it's a piece of case law effectively. So there is some more. It will be interesting to see what happens in the coming years as to whether this is still an area that council can work in. With fisheries and other things, there's a bunch of people and government involved in these kinds of things. So the unitary plan doesn't reflect the opportunities that we might choose to take through this case at the moment. We will look at that, but there is no specific work going on at the moment around changing the unitary plan. There are other councils that are looking at it as well. So it's a little bit of an evolving area, but we play a part as well as fisheries and other government agencies around this stuff.
Councillor Watson.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for a very compelling presentation there, Sean. I just sort of make the point with the co-chair of the Hauraki Golf Forum that this is obviously a very important issue that body should pick up. So I'm just assuming that this presentation will be passed on to the Hauraki Golf Forum so we can have a discussion too.
Yep, definitely Councillor Watson, myself and Councillor Kuma on board with that. Councillor Fletcher.
I think Councillor Watson has probably highlighted what I wish to, but I think what this also highlights, and I really applaud your advocacy to us today, is that we've had incredible champions for the Gulf for a long period of time. Roger Grace died recently. I mean, he taught my son, and there's been passionate advocacy, and a lot of us thought that with the passage of the Hauraki Gulf Marine Park legislation and the forum that we would begin to address some of these things. But what this highlights is the inadequacy that they have no power. I sit on the forum, I have sat on the forum for some time, and I think it's going to require advocacy from all of us to bring this to a head. And it's easy to duck for cover and say, oh, well, it's not me, henny penny, so I'll just go and duck over there. Somehow or another, collectively, we've got to come together and put that energy into changing whatever it is in a statutory sense or whatever, that we can actually take action on this, because it's absolutely unacceptable. And this is not a new issue. This issue has been, a lot of us who've been involved in the Gulf for a long time have been agonising over this for 20 odd years. So it's time for some passion and some action, and I applaud you for coming today.
Thanks so much. And yeah, waiting for policy, as you can see from the state of the Gulf, is not a great management strategy. And so it's really exciting that we now have policy, and now all that's missing is leadership.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Member Wilson.
Kia ora, Sean. What a very compelling presentation it was, and done in double quick time, which is always quite difficult. So appreciate the opportunity to catch up in speed. Advocacy, absolutely, as you can tell by the questions and the commentary that's being mooted today, there is a concern being expressed, and I guess it'd be good to see, not necessarily as council works through what it needs to work through, what your next plan would be, because otherwise it is a series of presentations and the like. So I'm curious, please, in terms of what you're presenting here, what your plan is to be. Not, you've only got 5 minutes, but I'm just trying to get a sense of what that looks like.
My understanding is that this committee's preparing a response, and so I'll just wait for that, and then we'll go from there.
Good. Thank you, Member Wilson. And absolutely, so staff are preparing a response to you, but that will be circulated to all members of this committee on what we legally can and cannot do, what we could look to do, and any plans, responding to the more TT decision, but also more generally with things that are bubbling up, such as the Waiheke Rahui and discussions around the Rahui, potentially around Hauturu, with Ngāti Manuhiri and others, and actually the kind of, I guess, changing nature of what we may be able to do as a local authority now that we assumed we had to always sort of beg government for. And as the Hauraki Gulf Forum and Council, support 30% of the Gulf being either marine reserve or marine protection, and we know that it's about 0.3 at the moment. So we know there's a serious discrepancy with our goals as a city and what that means working with mana whenua in the first and foremost, and then with government and everyone else who may have concerns on this. But I think it's definitely a maturing conversation. And I thank you very much for bringing this to the fore, and I think the images sort of speak for themselves as well. And thank you for what you and others, and it was Peter Miles that I met the other day on the Musselbed restoration and the consent that has been allowed there, which I think is a very exciting way forward, that we might see some examples of that restoration. And as you say, if it's more expensive to put it back than take it out, it seems pretty a confusing way to be treating our ecosystem. So thank you very much. If I have a mover to... Oh, was there another question? Sorry, Councillor... Oh, sorry, mover, Councillor Cooper. Bartley second.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And we will... Do you want to speak before?
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to second it, but I also, for the information of those of us sitting around the table, is to also acknowledge Sean for his work in terms of birds and dotterels in our area. He's from Point England, so he's from my patch. And I just wanted to acknowledge you in this forum for everything that you're doing to protect and look after the birds in our area. So to see you come here for this issue, again, for me, makes me really think, yeah, okay, this is a serious issue. Need to do what we can to provide that leadership that you're asking for. So look forward to the reports on how we can show that leadership on this issue. So thank you, Sean.
Would anyone else like to speak? No? Okay, all those in favour? Aye. And thank you very much, Sean.